Dare to dream a bigger dream.
Love it.
Yes. All right. So, welcome back. My name is Kim Eichhoff, and this is my video series I am calling Dare to Dream. And mostly I'm doing this to just kind of highlight what it's like to be an entrepreneur, what you have to go through, what we have to go through. I'm a business coach, so obviously I talk to a lot of people, and one of the things that I love about what I do is getting to see what different people create in order to make a living, support the life that they want to live. So today, my guest is Katy Lee, and she is a counselor. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about what she specializes in. And then if you'll share a little bit about that and kind of maybe when you started this journey, but then also kind of when you started your business, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Sounds good. So I have been in the field of mental health for the last 10 years. So I actually started off while I was in undergrad. I worked as a frontline staff worker, meaning directly with clients. And I started my journey working with clients who were stepping down from juvenile detention. And so adolescents, 14 to 18, some 19-year-olds kind of depending. But we were really working with them to integrate them back into the community. So I grew a passion for that pretty quickly. I've always really wanted to just help a community, help kids in my community. A lot of that comes from my family and my dad. My dad was a single father, ran his own business, and helped as many kids as possible who didn't have necessarily stable families to go home to. So I think that's my drive for most of what I do. So that's kind of how I started. And as I went through that process, I realized that I wanted to do something deeper than just kind of be the people who are managing and, driving the kids to appointments and stuff like that. So I went back and got my master's degree in clinical mental health and began my journey as a therapist. So I thought for the longest time that I was gonna stick with juvenile offenders, and then realized that I really like working with younger kids as well. So I worked for 5 years at a nonprofit, Mount St. Vincent's, and worked kids 5 to 12-ish most of the time. And a lot of them had experienced a lot of similar stuff as the adolescents. So a lot of trauma, unstable homes, mental health issues, all of that. So as I went through that, I started noticing myself and a lot of the people around me getting really burnt out. Really hard work. It's a lot of emotional weight as well as just physical stuff that you have to do and requirements. And so I kind of shifted, I think, in about my 4th year of being a therapist there, and really wanted to support staff as well as the kids, but then started realizing that I was getting burnt out as well. And I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. My therapy wasn't really great. I wasn't really meeting my clients where they were at, and I just didn't feel good about it. So my wonderful husband really encouraged me to start my own business. And so I kind of just took a leap of faith all of a sudden. It was great because I had put in my notice and I said, okay, end of school year is when I'm gonna be done, and I'm gonna jump off and do this, and decided to take a 1-week vacation to Seattle in between. So I did my rest and my relaxation, and then kind of went full forward with force into my private practice, which has been running I'm on my 3rd year now. So.
Oh, wow. That's great. So what was it like taking that leap of faith? Like how did you do it? What motivated you to do it? How did you work through the fear? Or did you have any fear? Maybe you didn't.
Oh, I was terrified. It was kind of funny. So my husband and I had been talking about, like, he wanted me to do my own private practice for so long. So I think what a lot of people don't understand is, as a lot of people see therapists and see, oh, you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And that's for most therapists, that's not necessarily true. When you first get out of school, we call it like indentured servitude, is you have to work basically for a nonprofit to get supervision. So I was making a lot less money than even like my average clientele that I was seeing. And so he had really said, like, you know, you're worth so much more, you have so much more value, like, why are you just grinding it out and working 60 hours a week for nothing? Like, I don't understand. And I was like, but it's a paycheck, it's a constant paycheck, and that's what we need. And I think as we kind of developed in our relationship, he actually was like, so this is taking a toll on you more than just financially, right? Like, you're worn down, you're getting sick all the time. Like, our relationship is suffering because you're not even like available to have a relationship right now. So like, what are we gonna shift? And I was so scared when I first wanted to step out. I was like, but what if the money's not there, and what if I go into like massive amounts of debt, and I don't know if I can do this, or what if people don't like me? And he's like, then you have a fallback. Like, you're hireable everywhere else, so why not?
Right.
Which was kind of a cool thing. Like, he was really a huge support, which was great. And so, yeah, I think the motivation was really looking and saying like, hey, I might really love working with these kids that I'm with, but it's not being conducive to everything else in my life that I want. I'm not rested, I'm burnt out, I'm not really working the way that I want to. My relationship isn't doing great. Like, I can't even think about starting a family. Yeah. It was crazy. And so that was like a huge motivation for me. I think once that was pointed out and I really started realizing like, oh yeah, like this is not what I want to be doing in my life.
Right.
So yeah. Long and short, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. So it was, okay, I'm miserable, I'm unhealthy, I'm not living the life I want. So I'm going to start a business, which is exciting, and there's lots of more control in a lot of ways you have, right? But then there's a whole nother level of stress in a whole different way. So, but what have you discovered about yourself, I guess, as now that you have your own business and you're doing it, and you've been doing it for 3 years? So I'm guessing you have grown over the last 3 years, figuring out kind of how to do this better, that works better for you. What have you kind of learned about yourself that has been one of the biggest things that has helped you in your life as well as you've gone through the process?
Well, that's a great question. I feel like I've learned a lot. I think the biggest thing, and I could say this even in talking with other entrepreneurs, but I think learning to trust yourself, like trusting myself was the biggest piece, right? Of, can I actually do this? And I think that thought through the first year of me being in practice, like, happened on probably 4 or 5 times on a daily basis. Like, are you really doing this? I don't know. What makes you qualified to do this? And it took a really long time to like trust myself and say like, actually, yeah, like I can. And I'm capable of learning the things I don't know. I know what I'm doing. I'm not like some person just willy-nilly just floating around doing this. So I think that was the biggest growth piece for myself. I can say too, I think, and I know we've talked about this in our coaching of, I actually became pregnant within the first year of my business, which was like this insane thing. And so I was trying to trust myself as a business person, but then had this whole other process of like, now I'm going to become a mom, and like, what the heck do I do with that?
Right.
And so I think actually having both of those things have helped me grow in the sense of saying like, okay, how do I hold boundaries in my life then? Because that was a really hard thing for me, especially for starting, as I was like, I'd take anybody and everybody. I would cut my prices down as low as possible just to get money in the door. And I would work like insane hours because I was used to doing that. And then having this little tiny human that like relies on you for everything and continues to, I think has really helped me create like, okay, I have to have some pretty set boundaries for myself and for my clients, because otherwise I can't be a good mom. I can't afford to take care of her. And I need to be emotionally available for both areas of my life. So I think that kind of forced that.
Yeah, so you've had to really practice what you preach in a lot of ways, right? So as a therapist, I'm sure you're helping people create a plan to live healthier and to take care of themselves. What has been your biggest challenge around that for yourself? Being a mom, but also being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to be honest, I think being a mom and an entrepreneur can be one and the same in the challenges of it, because it's both new and you don't really know what you're doing for a while. I think for me, it's really like making a point to do it and saying this is important and making it a priority in my life. I that's the hardest thing, and it's what I notice with my clients, but also with myself, of saying like, yeah, I don't have a choice whether I go for a walk or not today, or I do some art because that helps me relax, or take a bubble bath or whatever. Like this has to be done, or I'm not going to be good enough for anybody that I work with tomorrow, or my kid, or my husband for that matter, I guess.
Sorry, my dog is barking.
That's okay.
The UPS man is here, and she's like, "There's somebody here."
Yeah.
She's having a great time with all this. Hang on just a second.
Yeah.
I'll edit that part out.
That's cool. I love it.
Oh, she's such a watchdog. All right. Yes. So taking care of yourself. So talk to me a little bit. You mentioned pricing earlier, right? Where you weren't charging what you were worth. One of the things that I see a lot with clients, and then with other small business and myself, I've had to learn this, is when we don't charge enough, we don't see our value. And so it's easy to not charge enough if we don't see our value. So was there some personal work you've had to do to kind of get really a lot more comfortable with charging what, so you're not exhausted all the time and overworking yourself?
Yes, totally. I think there's like a two-folded answer in that. So one is definitely like having to work on my personal thought process around money and value and worth. I think the first thing that I always thought of is like, well, if I can't go and afford to spend this much money to see somebody, why am I charging someone that much? And so that was kind of always or like the people that I want to serve or who really need this can't afford it, which is, I think, a lie that we tell ourselves to make it feel better. And so I think it took a lot of work to really find out like what was my value around money? What did I think about money? And why, and how did that compare to like how I felt about myself or my skill level and what I was doing? So that was definitely a good, probably 1.5 to 2 year process of like, how do I make this match and also like make it to where I can also afford to live as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
because you want to be able to enjoy your work, right? And part of that is you have to be able to you have to make enough money to live on and do the things you need to do to support your life and have that energy for especially as a therapist. Because if you come in not taking care of yourself, it's very obvious, I'm sure, after a while anyway.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen so many people burn out around it. And I think that was kind of the other part of my process, is talking with some of the other therapists, like friends, colleagues, people that I work with in my office, around like, how did you guys come up with this? And really talking with them about like, how do we create value within ourselves, because we are, and then also show that to the rest of the world. Like, it's the reason that we cost this much is because we have this much expertise in this area, or because like I am taking your stuff and my stuff home, and that's a lie. So I think there's a piece of that too, where it's like how I really had to find ways to connect with other therapists and bring up that subject of like, so how do you charge how much you charge? Like what is that? How do you think about it? And actually be brave enough to have those conversations, because a lot of people don't. And I think that was just helpful for me to like shift and say, oh yeah, like I think I am valuable and I do know things. In the middle of that conversation, I was working with a client who I think really solidified it to me, and we had like a pretty deep session one day, and he was doing a lot of processing and growth and making a ton of connections. And before he left, he looked at me and he said, I've never had somebody that I felt so trusted in to help me actually connect my life and make things make sense. And I was like, really? I mean, that was my first, like, me? I don't know why you think that. But then I was like, oh, wow, like, that is valuable. And just being present and being somebody who's not judgmental is, like, so, like, such a value that people don't have in this world anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Well, so talk a little bit about kind of the work you are doing now, and then maybe in regards to what we're in the middle of this pandemic right now,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
where most businesses, or I don't know most, but a lot of businesses are slow
Mm-hmm.
or not even running. Yours is probably busy or busier, maybe even than what it was. So tell everybody kind of what you do and then how you do it a little differently, because I think it is very unique. And then also, what are you seeing as far as, I don't know, your overall, I guess, take on things, how things are going as far as how we're going to come out of
No,
this.
Virgin. It's a loaded
Little
question.
It's a little question, I know.
Yeah. So I do a few different things. So my primary work is with still with children and adolescents. So anywhere between 5 and 18 is a pretty big passion of mine. I also work with adults who are experiencing depression, anxiety, or who have trauma in their background. I think right now the core focus of my adults that I work with are definitely males, and how to help them feel like they can express themselves in a healthier way, as well as working with relationship wise and gain support from their partners, because that's not the norm for a lot of males.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been my focus with adults mostly right now. But yeah, so I do things a little differently, like you said, and I think that it's helpful for me, and I find it helpful for a lot of the clients I work with, is I don't necessarily just do talk therapy. I obviously do talk, we process about stuff, but we use other methods as well if needed to help process things out. Not everybody just likes to sit down and talk to a stranger. Even after 3 or 4 sessions, people don't necessarily just want to sit and talk. So I use play therapy a lot with the kids that I work with, even the adolescents. So we can use a whole bunch of different stuff within that. I like to bring in movement as well. So going for walks or playing catch or just like dancing at points in our session is just helpful to get that energy moving, whatever energy that is. But then I also like to bring in art techniques too. So I tell people I'm not an art therapist per se, but I like to use the techniques in order to help people process whatever is going on for them. It's super helpful with teenagers. And so I've noticed with tons of my teens, like I can maybe say 4 or 5 words in session, but we can get a ton of stuff done through art. And so that has been a huge help in my world as well. So yeah, so I use some different stuff just because I think we're all different, and we also need to figure out what works for us in processing, because not everybody does it the same.
So a question to that, based on kind of where we are right now with this pandemic, how are you finding, because you're doing most of your sessions through Zoom, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
How are you finding this medium or some kind of video thing, doing that, the different kind of work?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, so I'll tie the question earlier too of like in this pandemic, for a lot of businesses, like you said, it's been tough because it's hard to do things this way. In my world, my business has increased a ton because now people are like, oh wow, I have this big stressor, this big trauma that's happening, and I don't know what to do with it because I'm not made to to process it by myself. So I've seen quite an increase in my clientele since this whole thing started, which is fabulous, and it's also very hard. Yeah.
So is it because the stress of what's happening right now is triggering either old traumas of people, or their levels of anxiety or fear has heightened even more? Is that what's happening?
All the above. So I have a lot of people who it has triggered like old traumas because of the lack of control in this and the lack of answers. That's a huge piece right now. A lot of relationships are starting to, kind of we're like, oh, we're home 24/7 with each other. We're not having a break. What do we do? Because now we're just at each other's throats. So I'm seeing a lot of that, but also just anxiety in general. Even people who haven't had anxiety before, something this big triggers it for a lot of people. And a huge piece of it is lack of control. And so people who find it soothing to have control over many pieces of their life then have this really big thing that is controlling a lot of their life that they have no say in. And that is a big piece too. Depression is super spiked right now too, just because people aren't able to do a lot of the stuff they used to in order to help with that. And so we're seeing a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I had a client yesterday I was talking to, and she's struggling a lot because she loves like backpacking, and during the spring, this is when she starts doing a lot of that. And she's like, yeah, she's just feeling really lost, I think, as far as how to manage her feelings. And
and it's hard because a lot of us get into a routine of like, this is what I do, right? And these are the things that I only know how to do. And when those get taken away and we don't have backups, we lose it, right? All of us do. It doesn't matter how mentally stable anybody is or not. It just happens because it's a struggle for sure.
Totally. Your whole world's upside down right now.
Yeah,
different.
Absolutely.
Totally different.
Yeah, everything's so different. And so I kind of laugh with clients about like, this is not my preferred way to do stuff, right? I would much rather be in person and much rather be connected in a different way. So I have really had to do some work for myself around the bias about doing stuff over Zoom, obviously, because we can't meet in office. So it's for myself as well. This is a forced change. But I will say it's been really, really great to actually ignite a different piece of the creativity part for me, because I have to get creative, especially with working with kids. Adults are a little bit easier. We can talk through some stuff, and I tell them like, we're gonna stand up and move a little bit together, so we're not just sitting and staring at the screen. But with kids, it's like, how do you do play therapy? How do you do games or arts? And I can actually, it's funny, I have decks of cards in here. I played Uno. I've done board games with kids because we both have them, so we just play off of our own. I made pop-up books this morning with a kiddo. So
wow.
I mean, so you have to get creative with it. And I think that's the exciting part about it that I can get into is like, oh, okay, now this is a challenge. How can I engage, a 4 or 5-year-old to talk over the computer for an hour? And so far it's been about 60% successful. So I find that a good success rate right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Well, and just the fact that people can have access to you right now is really important, right? So finding any way that works. I'm finding that too, that I'm enjoying, and I think that's true for a lot of entrepreneurs, is that this is making us engage the creative side of our brain that we have probably not had to use so much lately if we had a business that was just kind of going. So yeah, I think that's interesting. I wonder, so what do you think, I guess, overall, as far as, I mean, are you seeing those kinds of positive things coming out of some of this with your clients as well? And then how that might change things in the future?
So I tend to tell people, let's reframe this as an opportunity. So yes, this is scary. Yes, there's lots of things going on. I can personally say I have friends and family members who've been personally affected by this virus, and it's hard. It's a scary thing. And at the same time, it's making us all slow down and really actually think about what's important in our life. We have gotten so used to using our phones or Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or all these other things I don't get on very much, to connect with people, right? And it's all like a false connection because there's a barrier in there. We don't have to connect personally anymore. And now that we're being told, hey, you can't be around other people, you can't be in the same room as people, the sense of actually having meaningful connection has been such a larger piece of people's lives and relationships. Of like, I was just having a conversation with some friends last night, and we were all kind of struggling and had different pieces of our day that were just super hard. And one of the girls said, oh my God, this sucks. Like, in the moment that we just need to have a happy hour and hug each other, we can't do it. And how sucky is that? Like, I normally wouldn't say that. And I said, oh my gosh, that's so true. So valuing those deeper connections and those personal relationships, I think is a good thing that's coming out of this. But the other pieces too is really re-engaging and saying, okay, how do I create the life that I want to have right now? Just from a mental health standpoint of like, hey, you keep telling me that you work too much and so you can't go take a 5-minute walk outside. Well, guess what? You're at home. You don't have to drive home, so go take a 5-minute walk after work and see how different it is. I've had clients who come back and go, oh my God, you're so right. And now I'm taking 30-minute walks instead of 5 minutes because that's my drive home. And like, I'm like, great. So how do we actually keep that going once things get quote unquote back to normal? Think about how different your mental health is versus like what it was beforehand and how can that help in our lives. And so I think that reframe of it of like, yes, not everybody in our world can make those changes right now, but if a majority of us can and come out of this and say, hey, I actually became a healthier human being, whether it's my mental health or my physical health or spiritual health. And now I'm walking into this new world, because it is going to be different and new, with a different mindset and head on my shoulders. Like, how wonderful would that be? Mm-hmm. Because then we can give the rest of the people who aren't able to do that a break to like breathe for a second too, and let them regenerate as much as possible. So that's kind of how I'm framing it. And a lot of people seem to be grasping that, which is really great to see. And so I think that gives me motivation to keep doing what I'm doing too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I'm seeing is some of my clients are super busy, you know, and kind of in the same boat as you're in. Their businesses have not slowed down; they've increased, and they are in this new normal where you're at home, your spouse is at home, your kids at home. It's like, so then somebody like you, right? Your work is even busier, and your home life is busier. What is there a part of you that is able to slow down during this time? Or are you sort of jealous of everybody else being able to slow down? Or and how I guess as we come out of this, are you going to take care of yourself too? Like, what's your kind of, how have you been thinking about all that?
Absolutely. I think it depends on the day whether I'm slowing down or jealous. So I can't say that. There are just days where I'm like, I am jealous of these other people who I'm seeing taking walks and stuff. But I actually think it has also really reframed for me about how much my own self-care is needed. And I think it has helped me because so many of us are having our home life and our work life in one house. And I can say this for myself as well. I embrace the break, right? My clients' problems, my work problems don't end up in my house because I can leave them at my office as like a very concrete thing. And that obviously isn't happening now. So I really had to learn new ways to break off from my work and walk out the door behind me and go upstairs and be a mom again and be fully present in my household, because it's hard to do that when you don't have the 20-minute drive home, right? It's like a 5-second walk upstairs and she's like, hey, her and my dog. And so I found it like really important to say, okay, even though my business might not be slowing down, I need to take a step back. And how do I do that? How do my spouse and I figure out how to do that for each other? Like, whether that's, we keep our sitters right now for 5 extra minutes so we can both take some deep breaths before going upstairs, or, one takes the kid, then the other takes the kid or dog or whatever, for a couple of minutes so we have that break. But also I build in every day I go on a walk, except yesterday because it's too snowy. But I do it every day, and I try to bookend my day with, I start with it, I end with it. I don't even care if my kid goes with me, but it's like, movement is a huge piece of my life, and so is art. And so if I can do art with kids during the day, that helps. But also making sure I have that break time. And so I think for me coming out of it, I also am taking, how do I actually make sure that I'm doing these things during the day for myself, even when I get back to the normal. And practicing what I preach to my clients every day of saying like, hey, we're both in this and we have to refigure out our life. We have to refigure out how to stay like mentally healthy and physically healthy and get our emotions moving in our body so they don't stay stuck. So I think that that's been a big learning point for myself, but I also am really trying to help my clients with too. Is just like, how do we reset a little bit? Because now's the time to do it if we're going to have any time to do it at all. Because the world is telling us to do that.
Right. The whole world has that. Well, and I'm wondering if you felt this. I have felt this kind of release or space, I guess, around feeling like I have to go all the time, like I usually feel.
Right.
And then there's like this lack of, I don't have to compete against, not really that I was competing against other people, but I think when you see everyone's moving so fast, you feel like you have to be moving so fast. And so without that, I totally have been like, oh, okay. And even though I have seen quite a drop in my business because I work with business owners and a lot of them have no money coming in right now, right? So they can, I've also just taken this time just to kind of relax and know that I'm okay. And I have enough coming in, but then it's like, okay, when this starts to build back up, how do I keep kind of this mindset? Because it feels so much, I'm sleeping better. I feel healthier. I mean, somebody said on Facebook the other day that I look younger, you know, so I think there's all those pieces to it. Are you noticing that too with people or with yourself or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's a big piece of right now is like noticing how we feel in the moment of like where we don't have to go do things, right? Like we're not going to run to Home Depot 5 times this weekend to get stuff that we need because we probably don't need it anyways. Or go to the grocery store 15 times, or go to the mall, or go buy this, or have to go to the mountains for an hour because that's what everyone else is doing. I think for me, I'm reframing, and I see this a lot with my clients too, of like, what's important? What is meaningful in my life to me? Is it a big thing if I have my backyard completely done with all my plants and flowers? That'd be great, and I don't need it. It's not a have to, right? I don't have to compete with my neighbors in that. I don't have to compete with friends for barbecues, or like I just enjoy their company. So why do I worry so much about that? I think the other piece too is saying like my have tos are my health, my family, and like the love that I can spread to the people that are in my life. And those are really my only have-tos. So why don't I just focus on that the majority of the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that has been a huge impact.
How do we keep that as a focus as we come out of this? You know, I mean, that's what I keep thinking about too. How do we, because I think a lot of us are seeing things differently. So how do we keep that and not fall back into our old ways?
Yeah. I think one good thing that's going to happen is I don't know that the world will ever be quote unquote the same, right?
Yeah.
So I think embracing that a little bit and saying like, hey, that's okay that it's not the same. Let's change it into what we want it to be. Let's change my world into what I want it to be. I think the other piece of it that my husband and I have really been working on too is like, okay, how do we build this back into our daily lives when we do have to go to work? Or we're dropping kiddo off at daycare and we do have house projects to do on the weekends of like, how do we build in family time? How do we build in relationship time, whether that's with us or us with friends or whatever that looks like? And how do we have at least 2 or 3 times a week where it's like connection is the only important thing. It doesn't matter if it's connection for half a day, for a couple hours, but that has to take a precedence in our life instead of all these other things that we think we have to do, or projects that we have to do. Like those are just things and they'll go away eventually. We don't want us to go away is kind of the way to think about it too.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously what you're doing right now is really, really important. Are you working directly with any of the frontline healthcare people? Like, do you have supporting them?
Yeah, so I have a few on my caseload, and so I wish I could get more. And the reality is that time-wise, I am shifting some of my schedule to accommodate because they're working such strange hours or working double or triple shifts, or like it's insane right now. And I think for me, my goal is trying to figure out, okay, how do I help maybe people who have some more flexibility right now, and then in the aftermath of this, how do we reach out to these frontline workers, doctors, nurses, even grocery store staff people, or everyone, right? There's so many people who are brunting a lot of this, who don't have time right now to reach out, and B, like probably don't even have the words around how to express it. And so it's kind of like they have to go through this trauma, and then how do we help them immediately afterwards, instead of just saying, oh, it's fine, it's over, don't worry about it.
Right. We're all good now. Thanks.
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah. Crisis averted. It's like, that's not exactly true for human emotion.
Right. Well, and I think there is such a risk in our society to do that, right? To skip over. And for a lot of us, I think that's what we've had to do individually, is deal with the grief process in our own lives. But as we do get back to, some sort of more normal, not total normal probably, but how do we not just skip over their grief process for them, right? Or tell them it's okay, brush it under the rug or whatever. Right. So. Yeah.
And I think too, like what I hear from a lot of them is like, it's like the hero complex of letting them know that yes, we appreciate them and that's great, and we're calling them heroes and all these things, but that also puts a pressure of like, then you have to suck it up after it's done, right? Heroes don't cry, they don't get upset, they don't grieve, they don't any of that, and that's not true. It's, hey, you guys are working the front lines, and that's a lot of work right now, and you guys are experiencing some really tough stuff that you're probably not processing because you don't have any capability to do it right now because you're in survival mode. How do we come together and say, great, how do we help get you guys some days off? How do we help your mental health and support you that way? And my hope is that businesses are doing that. But I think what a lot of talk in my field is like, how do we reach out and create things as well, and opportunities for these frontline staff to access once this is all over?
I think that's great. Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be very, very needed. So. Yeah, absolutely. Oh boy. Well, thank you, Katy. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you doing this. Tell us a little bit about how we can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always go to my website. So my website is www.creative-connections.co. And so I have a whole bunch of information on my website of all services I offer, as well as training. You can also always contact me through the website with my email, or my email is lee.katy, Katy, LPC, so like Leo, Cleopatra, no wait, LP, sorry, Leo Plan Cleopatra, .com, at gmail.com. And so either way is probably the best way to do it. So those are probably the two easiest ways to reach out, and I usually try and get back with people within 24 hours. So.
Okay, and I'll put up a little thing at the end with everything written out so you can see it. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. With my my mispronunciation.
Well, it's hard with all the letters and the sound, and it's hard to know what. No, it's good. Well, thank you. I really do appreciate you being here and talking a little bit about being an entrepreneur, being a therapist, especially right now, and that your work is so needed. So I'm assuming and hoping that you're getting the care you need too, which it sounds like. You're taking care of yourself, but yeah, you have other professionals I know you work with to help and support each other. So.
Yeah, which is great. But thank you, Kim. I always enjoy talking with you. It's always a great conversation.
Good. Me too. All right. Well, have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You as well.
Okay.
Bye.
So dare to love, dare to laugh, take a stand, say yes to your path, dare to shine, dare to fly, make a scene, dare to dream a bigger dream.